So hey, Mike and Lara, appreciate you guys jumping on here real quick with us, doing a little on the line with Big Jaws Nation. And so thank you guys so much for taking some time with us today to kind of just talk about life, how that's been, hear a little personal story from you guys, how you guys came to know God, how you guys have met each other, all that kind of good stuff.
So I grew up in a Christian family, and I just knew from a really young age that following God and following Jesus is what I wanted. And I never really had a point where, like in high school or in elementary school or in college, where I was like, yes, this like the rededication thing, I didn't really have anything like that. I just kind of, just kept trekking with God, and it's been good. It's been good. So yeah, I don't really have an awesome like I was this and then I was this, but
I think that's so powerful personally, like the consistency or even like your foundation at home, I think that's really cool. I've heard a lot of people that have that side of the story kind of give me that explanation. I mean, being with youth ministry for a while, and it's like, I don't have this like testimony. I was like, the consistency is the testimony, right? That's what's cool.
Staying power.
That's what I was gonna say.
Staying power. That's right, Mike. That's right. You and I are tracking on that one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but I was 28 when I came to Jesus at a Baptist church, Southern Baptist church. Answered an altar call after several weeks of seeking the Lord and a little bit of fasting, but I wasn't a Christian yet. But some pastors over at the sawmill where I worked in Marion had come out over the years and had reached out to us at the sawmill.
Yes.
And
virtual everything right now with kids, right?
We made it 1 minute. But I was kind of a wild guy, party guy, and tried about everything in life probably. But at 28, I answered the call and gave my life to Jesus. He radically transformed me, and been growing in Him ever since. So that's been 13 years ago.
So how then did you guys' two stories just collide? Like, how did that end up happening?
Started visiting, other churches as well as a church where I had been saved, and just met a lot of new Christians. I was new, whole new family line there over in Marion. And through my ventures of meeting this person and this group and that church, I made my way over to Bern by the end of that year. I probably visited 15 churches that year and visited Bern. And the first time after all 15 churches, the first time I came here, God said, "This is your home."
Nice.
So I said, okay. And then a few months later, I got involved with a small group and some other things. And then Lara and I crossed paths on a Friday night worship event here in Bern. And that would have been April of 2008. We crossed paths, met each other. 5 weeks. The same night, I called my friends and on my way home and said, "Hey, I met my future wife. She doesn't know her yet." And then 5 weeks later, I did Pastor marrying.
So then, from my side of the story,
right? There's always the wife side, right?
Right. So I got out of college, and I had been dating a guy, and he broke up with me, and I realized that I kind of idolized him and maybe our relationship, and that it wasn't healthy. And so I was kind of finding myself and deciding what I wanted in a husband, what was most important. And so I made a list on a index card and said, I want my husband to want to read his Bible and want to go to church on his own. And none of my boyfriends previously to that had really ever been on their own kind of wanting to do those things, or those things had not really been priority to them. So when I met Mike, and he's talking to me about the Bible, and he wants to go to church and he wants to go to worship nights, and it's not because I asked him or
Right.
those kind of things. I was like, yes, this is a good.
You kind of hinted a little bit about like small group and stuff like that. I know both of you guys have been super involved since I've known you, since Shelby has known you, my wife, and just in the small group setting.
My parents were a good example of that, because they always had people over, and it wasn't always the people that were their closest friends, but they were very intentional about having people who would be considered outcasts, or people who are new to town, or whatever it was. They were very intentional about including everyone, and they were not afraid to talk about God or Jesus, in those types of settings, whether the people were really Christians or not. I don't really want to force it on anybody, but they were just,
Right.
It was just part of who they were, and so it just came out in their life. And so, whether we are in a small group or whether we are just having people over, that I guess that community aspect I just have really valued because of the example they set, and of course all the scriptures that talk about community and sharpening each other and learning from each other. And
Well, early on in my walk, not growing up in church, I never read the Bible. I was 28 and went on a fast and got born again, and still hadn't read the Bible. But as soon as I was regenerated, I did join my first Bible study on a Wednesday night and then a Tuesday night. But then as I met different people at different coffee shops, up until then I lived a life of entertainment. My evenings, my spare time, everything was built on entertainment for the most part, and self-indulgence, and all about me and having fun. Well, crucifying the flesh, picking up your cross and following him. That first summer, as April, I became a believer. I read the Bible. I read the New Testament and the Old Testament that summer. So I wanted a really good foundation. I had never read any of this stuff. I thought it was folklore. These were real stories I'm reading. Well, I joined probably 3-4 different small groups, from one at the Methodist Church in Marion, one at a Baptist church, one at the Southern Baptist Church. People would say, hey, we meet on Tuesday night. Hey, we meet on Thursday night. Hey, come on to our group. We meet on Monday night. But I was single. I didn't have any kids.
Right.
And I turned off, I turned off I lived out in the country, whatever. I turned off my satellite, internet, whatever. Nothing mattered anymore. Let's just go to work and then go grow in the Lord. And so all those smaller settings throughout the week, other than Sunday morning, that was just like, I met people from everywhere, and I was in multiple groups, and everybody had a different slant or a different thing they were studying or focusing on. And when I came to Burn the following year, I joined in the small group right away as well. And so ever since the beginning, meeting people from different churches and different walks of life in smaller settings has been just like part of life. I wouldn't know life without doing that.
Yeah.
And so now I've been in the same men's group for 6 years now. We've met every Sunday night for 6 years. We started with 3 guys, 4 guys, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 3-4 hours at a time, maybe even 5 hours. Well, actually this Sunday we were till 1 a.m. I left and there were 5 guys still sitting there, but I'm going to bed,
Right.
But it's just a very intimate time with building relationships with each other, diving in deeper, asking tough questions. You sit there long enough, you'll ask the question that you really want to ask, and get into it.
Yeah.
Or the other guy has that question, and God's given you a background or answer. And together you can grow and walk this out. Differently than if it was just you. And it's different, that small group, than in a large setting with 100 or 200 people. You can't ask. You listen and you don't really interact.
Yeah.
So it's totally different. It's very, very vital to a healthy life.
Yeah. feel like you both kind of went through, in a sense, a submersed state of Lara, you started off maybe earlier in your journey because of your family, and then Mike, as you kind of came along later, a little bit later in your journey, and all of a sudden you guys are realizing how crucial and how specific and how purposeful God made those small groups to be something that you're submersed in.
Sometimes for me, it's hard to, that motivation to go isn't always there. And I just feel this phrase on my heart. So any of your students that are unsure, if you're scared, go scared. You know, like, I don't know, that stuck out to me. Like, even when you don't want to go. Because like you said, you might be the person that somebody else is gleaning from. And, you know, you don't want to deny them that that spiritual growth that they could have if you weren't there. And so sometimes we have to force our bodies to do things that our minds know are.
That's good. Yeah, that's awesome. Exactly. So I guess kind of moving from what you guys valued and you know, your family now meshes, and all of a sudden, you know, start about, you know, renovating a building in town, and then it moves from maybe more specific what type of business to put into it.
There are just some things that you're like, how does this even happen? How does this even come about? It's just some things that's like, this could only be God, because we have no idea what we are doing. And most of the time we're learning along the way.
Yeah. So I think it's fun to say, hey, grew up in a sawmill family. I worked at a sawmill. And then we had trucks, and we had some trucking, and then I started my own trucking. So what do I know about coffee? Or a coffee shop, you know. There's no correlation there, you know. I just, from the beginning, I've always been kind of a social guy, you know. Maybe that's part of it as well. That's what God's put in me even before I knew Him. He created me a certain way with certain gifts, right? And now we have, how are we going to use the talents and gifts that God has given us? You know, even apart from Him, we have certain abilities that He created us with. So, you know, now coming to know Him, now, this is all about Him, not all about me. So now I can take these gifts and values and abilities. How does that look in the kingdom? You know, in this kingdom instead of this kingdom, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And so, our small group guys, like I said, we've been meeting for 6 years, did play a role in pushing me along, pushing this, not just me, but the concept of the filling station. You know, they played a huge role in getting from point A to point B. Not ever have traveled from point A to point B. You know, it's a wilderness. How are you going to get there? I kind of see a vision at the end. Obviously, it's way different than what I thought I could see. Little bitty coffee shop, little bit of business. But, you know, like I said, back in Marion, I met a lot of people at coffee shops. And I needed to meet a lot of Christians because I after 28 years of partying and other things, I didn't have those relationships, you know, to grow with and walk in. And so it was really vital for me. And so the value of that kind of a space in the town to come together for creating the possibility for people to come together. I don't know what's going to happen, but creating the atmosphere and the environment of a crossroads of people who are 15 or 10 and people who are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, it don't matter, you know. So just that was just a community crossroads, which kind of was part of that. And also I did when we created the building, when we transformed it, we wanted a space to do worship events as well, and maybe some equipping and teaching down the road, different classes, and we've done some of that. So for me, you know, the coffee aspect was really secondary, a gathering place of all generations, of different denominations, of believers and non-believers, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just believers going there, you know? So what God loves everybody. So and so just creating that worship area, event center. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but let's build it like this. Let's build it like that. Which way do we go now? This, left, or there were a lot of decisions and a lot of unknowns, and exploded more, than I ever thought it would. Even on day one and week one, this will probably back off. This will die down. We've been really, actually, even through COVID, we were hit record numbers of all the last 8 weeks. The number of people coming through. Yeah, so it continues. It's a journey. The trucking company that I started 10 years ago, I knew my heart wasn't, Mike, you just love trucking. I never actually, it was a successful business, but I never had that. It was always about relationships, and God always told me this: your company's doing well, keep saving your money for what I'm going to ask you to do. Don't go spend it, just wait.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just wait, save more and wait, you're fine. And okay, and then after a handful of years, starting to get a bit going this way in the building. It was 4 years ago we started looking at the building, and then 2 years ago we bought the building, and then a year ago we started with it. But ultimately, stay the course, staying power, and God will do what He's going to do.
I know that he's an entrepreneur, and that God's given him those skills and that mindset. And I never wanted to own a restaurant or be part of a restaurant because I felt like it was a lot of work and that it would take him away from us. And I just knew it was a huge sacrifices for families that do that. And so, but at the same time, I did not want to hold him back from doing, what the Lord was calling him to do. And I didn't want to, I wanted to be a partner with him and not, not try to say no all the time. So, sure. So when he suggested the coffee shop, I was like, okay, let's go for it. And then when we looked at buildings, he would ask me, and I couldn't always tell you why, but I was like, no, not that one, and then finally I'm like, yes, that one. And that's kind of just how those things came together. There's always going to be some kinds of sacrifices that you make, and I trust, that we have communicated, and I trust him. And I know that he does not want to be away from us all the time. And so giving grace in those times, in those seasons when it's just part of where we are right now, and thankfully in the last few weeks it hasn't been as much, and it's been nice as well. But
I've come home a lot in the last 2 years with questions and needing her opinion, to a point where probably many times you didn't want to hear about it anymore. And
might have happened.
I'm not answering any more questions. It's been a long day and I'm done.
Yes.
I need to know tomorrow.
Yes.
I don't have all the answers either, and my wife helps me a lot, and still together we don't have all the answers, me and the group and people, a lot of people to get, just like a church, it takes a whole team effort. There's no one man has every answer and can do everything. So I lean a lot on good, healthy relationships with people who love God, and are filled with the Holy Spirit and want to see God do awesome things in our neighborhood and in our town and in our county. There's a whole lot of people that took to get this thing to just open the door and pour a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I feel like more, even personally, but even the more I hear in the communities about certain places that, there's a contagious side to the environment, to the warmth, to the fellowship that's felt within the walls, from your employees all the way down from the the lowest level to the highest level. As far as that, I just think that is probably in a sense what drives people to the filling station, is because they know what's at the center of your relationship with God in there, and you can sense it when you walk in there. You sense it. You've got that big black and white sign, massive. I believe you moved outside, right, for a time being, or you got a different one?
I just got a second one.
Got a second one, yes. So it says Jesus is King, right? And I just think that's like for you guys to kind of mount that and to put that, I think, literally in the center of your building. You know, that spoke to me personally, and I know that spoke to a lot of people, just saying like, wow, this is built, this is at the center, this is the warmth environment. It's not the coffee, it's not whatever baked goods or anything like you guys can drive. I mean, it might be some donuts every now and then that might bring them in, but man, the sweetness that you guys really do provide, that warmth environment is just so contagious. Like, I've personally seen even Lara with your gifts of, I mean, the place looks amazing, right? Like the decor, the layout, everything. I know you had a huge hand in that. I think it's really cool to see you guys as a couple, you know, using your strengths and not necessarily denying the weaknesses and saying, but you find somebody else that can do that to where they're gifted and they don't get burnt out, you know.